In the pre-dawn darkness of November 8th, 1942, 850 ships stretched across the Atlantic and Mediterranean. Aboard them, 107,000 Allied soldiers waited in silence. Most had never seen combat. Many had never left their home country. None of them knew whether the forces waiting on the beaches ahead would greet them as liberators or open fire. This was Operation Torch, the largest amphibious invasion the world had ever seen. An operation so secret that even the soldiers on the ships did not know their destination until they were already at sea. It was also a colossal gamble. If the enemy detected the convoys, if the French fleet engaged, if the landings failed, the war in Europe could be set back by years. Everything depended on surprise, and somehow, against all odds, they achieved it. But this operation did not begin on the open ocean. It began months earlier, in the war rooms of Washington and London, with an argument that nearly tore the Allied leadership apart. By the summer of 1942, the Allies were losing. German U-boats were strangling Atlantic supply lines. Rommel's Africa Corps was driving toward Egypt and the Suez Canal. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union was hemorrhaging millions of lives, and Stalin was demanding, almost begging, for a second front to draw German forces west. The Americans wanted to invade France directly, hit the continent, and end the war fast. But Churchill pushed back. Allied forces were not ready for France, not yet. A failed invasion across the English Channel would be catastrophic. He proposed something else entirely: North Africa. Take French Morocco and Algeria, clear the Mediterranean, trap Rommel between two armies, then use Africa as a springboard to invade southern Europe. Roosevelt agreed. The plan was approved. But it came with a problem no one could solve on paper. France's North African colonies, Îles, were controlled by the Vichy regime. Technically neutral, they were aligned with Nazi Germany. The Vichy French had 120,000 troops stationed across Morocco and Algeria. They also had powerful warships. If those forces fought back at full strength, the invasion would drown before it reached the sand. The Allies had no idea which way the French would turn. Eisenhower, chosen to command the entire operation, called it his greatest gamble. And so, before a single ship sailed, the Allies launched two of the most audacious covert operations of the entire war. The first was espionage. In Washington, a British spy codenamed Cynthia had spent months seducing a Vichy French diplomat, drawing him into a romantic affair that was entirely calculated. In June of 1942, she used that relationship to break into the Vichy French embassy after hours. A professional safecracker smuggled in by British intelligence opened the embassy safe, while Cynthia kept the night watchman distracted. Inside were the Vichy French naval cipher books, the codes that encrypted every order sent to the French Mediterranean fleet. The books were photographed page by page and returned before dawn. The embassy never knew. Within weeks, Allied codebreakers could read French naval communications in real time. Every ship movement, every defensive order, every contingency plan along the North African coast. The second operation was even more dangerous. In October 1942, just weeks before the invasion, General Mark Clark boarded a British submarine and sailed to a remote farmhouse on the Algerian coast. His mission was to secretly meet with French officers sympathetic to the Allies and negotiate their cooperation when the landings came. The meeting nearly ended in disaster. Vichy police, tipped off to suspicious activity, raided the area. Clark and his team hid in a wine cellar for hours. At one point, Clark lost his trousers scrambling back to the submarine through the surf. He made it out. The intelligence he brought back confirmed that at least some French commanders in Algeria would stand down when the moment came. Now, everything was in motion. In late October, the convoys departed. The Western Task Force, carrying 35,000 American troops, sailed directly from Virginia across the open Atlantic, a crossing of over 3,000 miles. The Central and Eastern Task Forces sailed from Britain through the Strait of Gibraltar, one of the most closely watched waterways on Earth, monitored by German agents, Spanish observers, and Luftwaffe reconnaissance. The cover story fed to the enemy was that the convoys were reinforcements heading for Malta or the Middle East. Somehow, it held. The massive fleet passed through the strait at night. German intelligence failed to identify the true objective until it was too late. November the 8th, 1942, 3:15 in the morning. The first landing craft hit the beaches. At Algiers, the operation went almost according to plan. French resistance sympathizers attempted a coup inside the city, seizing key buildings before the landings. Although the coup was eventually put down, it created enough confusion that Allied forces met relatively light opposition. At Oran, it was harder. French coastal batteries and naval vessels fought back fiercely. 2 Allied ships attempting to rush the harbour were destroyed, but by the second day, the city was encircled and French forces surrendered. Casablanca was the bloodiest. The French battleship Jean Bart, incomplete but armed with massive 15-inch guns, opened fire on American warships from the harbour. A full naval engagement erupted offshore. American dive bombers struck Jean Bart, silencing her guns. Fighting continued for 3 days until Admiral Darlan, the most senior Vichy commander in Africa, ordered a ceasefire and switched sides. Within 72 hours of the first landings, organized French resistance had collapsed across all 3 sectors. The Allies held Morocco and Algeria. The consequences were enormous. Rommel, who had been driving east toward Egypt, now found himself caught between Montgomery's 8th Army advancing from the east and the newly landed Allied forces closing from the west. By May of 1943, the Afrika Korps surrendered. Over 230,000 Axis soldiers were captured. North Africa was secure. 2 months later, the Allies used it as a launchpad to invade Sicily, then Italy. The road to D-Day had been opened, not on the beaches of Normandy, but on the shores of Casablanca, Oran, and Algiers, 18 months earlier. 107,000 men crossed an ocean in secret. 850 ships passed through waters, crawling with U-boats and enemy spies. A stolen codebook, a general hiding in a wine cellar, and a gamble that the French might not fight back. Operation Torch should not have worked, but it did, and it changed everything that came after. If you found this story fascinating, subscribe for more untold chapters of history that shaped the world.